Okay guys, first let me start by saying that I'm making this video because I want our raid to succeed. The logs provided by Paley and Lady have been amazingly helpful, and I've been able to identify several trends. I'm making this not to call people out, though I am going to name names, but to point out areas of improvement that we can focus on. I repeat, nobody is in shit. Nobody is going to be thrown out of the raid. This is purely for informational and educational purposes. The biggest area where we seem to be falling down is on avoidable damage. This means there's a bunch of mechanics that we're not observing. Let's start by taking a look at this screenshot. This fight shows the avoidable damage chart for the first wipe against the Conclave of the Chosen. As you can see here on the left side, it shows the amount of damage taken by each player that should have been avoidable. Tenistus and Asax took 13 and 11% of their damage from these sources. Everybody is on this list, as you can see, but it does point out who the repeat offenders are. Let's look at a breakdown of the damage that's considered avoidable. These can be found across this bar here: Paku's Wrath, Wild Maul, Lacerating Claws, Kimball's Wrath, Thundering Storm, and Jagged Claws. Paku's Wrath happens when you don't stand in the circle under Paku. Wild Maul happens when you stand in front of Gonk too close to the tank. Lacerating Claws happens when Kimball's Aspect hits the tank with Lacerating Claws and you got too close to the tank again. Kimball's Wrath happens when a player is targeted by Kimball and he or she doesn't run it away from any other players, thus inflicting a stack of bleeding wounds onto them. Thundering Storm happens when you don't get out of Akunda's lightning circle. And lastly, Jagged Claws happens when the Raptor ads reach their target and hit you. If we take a look at Paku's Wrath, one player, which was Fnatic, was hit and actually killed by not getting into the Paku circle. If you access the Logs replay feature, you can actually watch this happen. I fast-forwarded to the couple of seconds before the raid knows where the Paku is going to land. As we can see here, this replay shows where every single one of us were at any given time. This right here is Fnatic. Let's watch. So as we see, this is Fnatic. Let me hit play. As you can see, it tracks all of us moving around. We all start moving to the right side of the room, because that's where the Paku is landing, but for whatever reason, Fnatic isn't moving with us. He starts taking damage from the Paku and turns red when he dies. So Finn, make sure you stay with the herd, listen for Julio's callouts, and move with the group into the circle around the Paku. You died on both of our wipes to the same mechanic, almost at the exact same time each attempt. As we can see here, Birth Knight and Tenistus also died to Paku damage. Birth Knight, as we can see here, was standing back healing the raid. So as we see here, Birth Knight is roughly center of the room, while everybody is gathered over to the right, for the most part, beating on Gonk. The fight proceeds apace. She drops back to heal, but you notice people starting to drift over to the left side of the room. The red circles are hexed people moving out of the raid, everybody else moves over to the Paku. Damage from Paku hits now. Birth Knight moves too late and dies. The lesson here is to again move with the group. You eventually tried to make it to the Paku, Birth Knight, but were slow in starting to move and thus didn't make it. Tenistus, on the other hand, died during the wipe phase and was where he should have been, but there simply weren't enough healers left at that point to save him. Wild Maul. This seems to be a big problem for us. What this shows us is that Tenistus, Asax, and Ra's al Ghul are frequently standing too close to the tank, and are getting into the frontal cone that is targeted on the tank. Nobody died to this, but it all had to be healed, thus draining mana from our healing crew. So back up a bit, guys, and make sure you're fully behind Gonk when hitting him. Lacerating Claws is Kimball's version of the same thing Gonk does. Japanese and Tenistus were clipped by these, but both happened during the wipe phase, so I'm not too worried about it. Just keep it in mind. Kimball's Wrath is a bit of a bigger problem. When you don't move out from other players, the dot that get puts on them stays there for the duration of the fight. It can't be dispelled or removed, so it's critical that people move out of the way. As we can see here, there were 2 players noted for not getting out of the way. Janar and Asax were both targeted at a minute 52 and a minute 53 into the fight. So as we can see here, Lady and Ra's al Ghul are attacking this raptor. Asax and Tanistus are over here attacking this raptor. This is approximately 5 seconds before Kimball's Wrath attack happens. Let's press play and see what happens. As we pause, we can see that Lady has now been targeted, as has Ace. The pale circles around them denotes anybody that's going to take damage from getting hit. Let's move it forward again. Lady immediately responds correctly by trying to move to the outside. However, Ra's al Ghul runs through her window and ends up getting a dot for it. Asax apparently failed to notice he was targeted and manages to hit Tanistus with his. Be aware of your surroundings, guys, and don't be afraid to communicate. Lady was actually doing the right thing and trying to get the attack out, but ran over Ra's al Ghul, and Asax failed to notice he was targeted at all, and Tanistus ended up getting hit with the dot. Thankfully, this was the only time we missed this on this particular pull. Our second attempt, however, Weakest hit Zan, Clocaine hit Tanistus, and Birth Knight managed to hit Tikix, Comspider, Pele, Julio, and Rupert all in one shot. The news is a little better, though, not perfect for Thundering Storm. This may be due in part to us only facing Akunda for a few brief moments before wiping. Asax, Julio, Birth Knight, and Janar all got caught in a lightning circle. And lastly, Jagged Claws. We had a bunch of people taking some serious damage from this. Tikix, Weakest, and Lex all got chewed on by raptor ads quite extensively. Lex, I'm pointing you out on this one because you managed to die twice at the same moment in both attempts to the same raptor. So if I zoom in on this fight a little bit, we can see Lex here happily burrowed in amongst the melee, beating on Paku. Let's zoom back out and then hit play. Okay, Lex is still here, wailing away on Paku. People are moving out. Here comes a couple of raptors. People are moving away. Here comes Lex's raptor. Lex isn't moving, and Lex dies. The moral here, guys, is that you need to pay attention to your DBM warnings and react swiftly and appropriately to what they are telling you. If you're targeted by a raptor, start kiting it immediately. Start moving around, look for it, seek it out, and move around so it doesn't hit you. When Julio calls that the Paku is down, move immediately to the Paku circle. Don't wait. If you're targeted by Kimball's Wrath, get it out of the raid as fast as you can, and make sure not to run over anybody as you go. And lastly, stay away from the tanks. I'll be putting markers on us so we're easier to spot, and that way we avoid Gonks and Kimball's frontal cone attacks. That sums it up, guys. These logs are a really valuable tool. There's a lot more information than just this little bit that I've made this video about. I do encourage you, follow the link that Lady left in Discord. Check out your performance. It's got tips on what you're doing for your DPS, your healing, or your tanking. It's a real valuable tool. Thanks again to Pele and Lady for recording these logs for us. Hopefully, this is the last time we have to face these guys and wipe on them doing so. I'll see you guys later tonight.